you mentioned it earlier, and if it's all right with you, if we could touch on it just for a few minutes. Obviously, while you were at the RST, and you've spoken about this a lot, drinking and drugs was obviously quite a big part of your life for so long. How much of your life did that take over? Because I know now that you advocate, obviously, that you don't drink at all, you don't touch any substances. How big a part of your life did the drinking and drugs take?
Oh, it was huge. I mean, I was an alcoholic. I am an alcoholic. I'm recovered. I'm 12 years sober, but and I had very, very hefty drug problems as well. And it's just that would have happened if I'd been into flower arranging. That would have happened if I'd been into modern dance. It wasn't anything to do with football. Stress obviously made it. But I think I just spent my life trying to outrun it, and trying to outrun the eventual conclusion, the sort of guaranteed conclusion, and then it all hit at once. Rangers, my life, I wasn't happy in my marriage, I wasn't happy in the career I had. Drink, all of it is, they call it self-medicating, and that's what it is. One of the great phrases that you hear a lot in Scotland is, I was out my nut, and that's the thing. I couldn't live in my nut. So that's why I had to be out of it, because it was just too scary. So it was like, I could deal with all this stuff, or I could have a drink and I'll deal with it tomorrow. And you do that every day, and that becomes the attitude. But as I say,
David?
Well, yeah, I mean, really, there are different schools of thought on it, whether or not you can be born that or not. I'm of the opinion, and people who haven't experienced it might think I'm talking shite, and that's fine. I hope you never do experience it. I tend to think that you're born that way, because there's a thing called alcoholic thinking. As someone said to me one time, I was born 2 pints shy. Do you know what I mean? Because I felt awkward and insecure all the time, and then a couple of drinks and I felt like I was, Leonardo DiCaprio on the front of the boat. And it gives you that. So if you could just, but the problem is that if I could just stop after 2, I would have been fine, but I could never do that. I mean, I didn't go for a drink. I went to get drunk all the time. Yeah, all the time. I never ever, I never left a pub because I'd had enough. I left a pub because I'd no money. I left a pub because it's shut. I left a pub because I was thrown out. But I never went, that'll do me on my way down the road. As soon as I had a drink, that was me, feet nailed to the floor. So I think that it would have been the case regardless. And it's kind of tenuous, the story, but it's a part of it, because my behaviour was, it was like the last days of Rome, the last sort of 5 or 6 years, where it was every night, it was lunch times, it was just constant, and you can get away with it for so long, and then eventually you just can't. And then, like alcoholics that get sober, you get your they call it moment of clarity, where it was just sitting there going, is this it? Is this what all this was for? I was 31, and I'm like, is this all you're going to be? Are you happy with this? Because if so, keep going. But I was sitting there and split up my wife, nowhere to live, we'd lost my job, didn't want to see any of my friends. God knows why they put up with me, but I didn't want to see any of them. So I was sitting in the house that I was staying in, and of course I'd bought a big carrier, and I went to drink a beer, but I was so sick. I'd been drinking, this is like 5 days into a bender, the bubbles were going to make me sick in the beer. And so I put it down and I went, there's no bubbles in wine. So I opened up the bottle of wine and poured that into a pint tumbler, and I'm sitting and I just went, what am I doing? Is it, seriously? Is this who you are? Is this what you want to be? Because this is it now, a wee room and this until you die. And I wouldn't say I wanted to die, but I wasn't all that bothered about being alive either. So I phoned AA and I went into AA, and I just, they told me the first day, do what we tell you. Remember, you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth, because you're meant to listen twice as much as you talk. Shut your face, do what we tell you, and your life will get better. And they were right. And so from that day to this, thankfully, one day at a time, and it could all change tomorrow, but one day at a time, I've never had a drink. And yeah, I'm not sitting telling anybody who's out there what to do, and I'm not telling anybody out there that they've got a problem, whatever. You'll know, folks watching this, if you have a problem, you'll know, right? You might tell other people, but when you're lying in your bed, you know. Trust me. All I'll say is that my life since I stopped has been so much better. And not going to say it's no hard. Not going to say there are no days that you just want to dive into a vat of alcohol and all your troubles to go away. But then when you realise that your troubles don't go away with the booze, what happens is booze goes and gets some new problems and brings them round, and you've still got the original ones there for the first thing. I've never once woke up and went, you know what, I wish I was hungover. And there's been a lot of shit in my life, and I don't want to make it to every day that it's nirvana, that everything gets perfect and you'll never have another problem in your life. It's because that is simply not true. But you're in a better place to handle them. And then you begin to get confidence in yourself that you didn't have before, that I certainly didn't have, that I can handle problems when they come up. Now, I'd rather not. I wish they didn't come up, but it's life. They're going to. And you find that you're in a pretty good spot. So sorry to be, I really don't maybe preachy, by the way. See if you can take a bucket and you love it and it never affects you, knock yourself out. It's another thing that people say to me, you go to pubs occasionally. I don't hang about in them. I don't go there 6 nights a week like I used to. But yeah, I can go to a pub. It's not my fault that it's not other people's fault that I can't drink. So they should be getting stuck right in. Why not? So of course, I don't have a problem with that in the slightest. Don't think anybody likes somebody that's absolutely hammered hanging on to them and spewing down their coat or whatever, but that would be the same if I still took a drink. So I don't want to make it like, and nor do I want to say I drank and I had a horrible time and my foot fell off. I had some amazing times, wonderful nights. I just I was at a party, and these days I'm at a different party, and it suits me for where I am in my life right now.
It's quite obviously for people maybe you're describing there, maybe who know for that they maybe have a problem. How did you manage to drag yourself away from that? And you're saying about the moment there, you're sitting with a beer and you just you knew that was it and you phoned AA. How did that moment of clarity come about? Because I would imagine for some people that's probably the most difficult part, is knowing when to stop.
Well, nobody goes cartwheeling into AA. It's not part of your life plan, Nobody thought that this would be a great thing to do. It's such a big word, alcoholic, right, Martin? It's such a big word that I can't be. I'm not one of these guys that sitting drinking in the park. That bottle of wine I had that day that I told you about, that cost 20 quid. I'm not a jakey. But then I thought, well, how am I any different to a wee guy that's sitting in the park drinking a bottle of cider? It's just it's the same railway line. He's just a few stops further down for me. And we call it your own personal gutter. And for some people it is living in the streets. For some people it's just a really bad night, a relationship ending. It doesn't matter. There's no rule. It's you, because you're an individual and you do different things. But there comes a point, I was just sick and tired of being sick and tired, right? I was sick of not being able to go for a night out until I had a carry out in the house to make sure I could come back to. I was sick of going to a concert and having to stand near the bar so I could get served quickly. I was sick of going to Ibrox and not knowing what the score was because I was so drunk with 20 minutes to go. I was sick of all that. And I just decided I wanted to try something else because I was miserable. And it didn't really make any sense to me that I continued to be miserable. But it is an addiction. And I think, again, people will tell you there's a physical element, and there is, because you do, Jesus, the first few days when I stopped drinking were brutal. It was like that bit in Trainspotting when Renton's trying to detox. I mean, it's hellish, the stuff they tell you about the DTs, and that's true, right? It's brutal. But once you're through that, your head starts to feel a bit clear. And you begin to go, oh, well, okay, and you notice things, and you just begin to be a bit better. Didn't mean at first I wasn't terrified. I was like, I'll never see my mates ever again. And I'll never ever, what am I going to do? And what happens I remember thinking, I'll not be able to have a drink to toast my nephew at his wedding. He was 4 at the time.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, just these ridiculous thoughts pop into your head, but you don't know any better. And that's why I don't think I could have done, well, I know I couldn't have done it on my own. I couldn't have just stopped because I wouldn't have known why I was stopping. But you go there and there are people who've there's a great thing in the West Wing when Leo talks about being stuck in a hole, and he says, why you jumped into this hole with me? We're both here now. And he's like, yeah, but I've been in here before and I know the way out. And that's the strength of any recovery group. So no, honestly, I don't want to make it sound heavy. If anybody ever, just if you ever feel that you're in a spot and you want to talk to somebody, because I know from experience it can help to talk to a stranger rather than to talk to somebody close to you. Drop me a line, get in touch with me, and we'll have a chat. But they said a thing to me the first day I went in. They went, come in and try it. And if you're still not happy in a few weeks, we'll give you your misery back and on you go. And they were right, because I was miserable. I was sick. I was, no use to anybody as a human being. And I remember it was in July. And I remember then at Christmas, I went down to see my parents on Christmas Day. And one of my aunties phoned and, I was talking away to her. And then I went through to play my nephew because he had some cool toys. And my mum was on the phone and my auntie asked her, what did you get for your Christmas? And she went, I've got my boy back. And that I was like, yeah, okay. This is, he'd do an arse up, son, get through it.
Yeah. No, amazing. I've had a few members in my own family who unfortunately struggle with alcohol and drug problems, and they're not quite as far on as you, but any sort of help they can be given.
Remember, and again, if any, and it's hellish for families because it is a family thing, their illness affects you. They don't want to be like that. Nobody grew up thinking that's what I want to be. So it's not them, it's what's wrong with them. But honestly, I've seen guys in their 70s go in and get sober. So it's never too late.
Never. I'm very, very conscious, David, that I've had you for about an hour and a half now, and I know you're a very, very busy man, so I will try and keep this brief. I've had a few questions from the guys on the Rabble. I was going to go right into your time with Murray, Heart and Hand, Where's It Going to Go, Stevie G, Gio, but honestly, we would be here for hours, and as much as I would love it, I don't think my wife, my partner, would be very happy.
Very sensible manoeuvre. That's the person.
It's that time of year.
100%.
Obviously, all that stuff with the Daily Record happened.
Yeah.
It was obviously widely publicised. I think the Daily Record knew about 30 seconds after they posted that article what a grave error they had made. You obviously fought back. And there's quite a few people wanting to know, are you still keeping tabs on that? Is that something you're actively following up and trying to get a conclusion out of?
Oh, yeah. No, don't worry about that. There's this, sometimes, and I can understand it, that people think if they're not seeing, especially when something's very visible in public at the start, that it's just going away. But no, that's not something I'm particularly ready to let go of yet. So no, there's definitely stuff going on, because it was never about, for us, it was never about, and people maybe misunderstood this, I didn't want to see guys at Daily Record sacked for a tweet that they'd sent 12 years ago when they were pissed. Okay, I've no interest in that. I think that culture is not helpful to society, because I think we've all done it. I think we've all said stuff in the past that if you take it out of context, and again, this is the old pub thing, isn't it? In the old days, you could make a sick joke or a bad remark or whatever, and you'd either, people would laugh or you'd get pulled up for it, but it was gone. Whereas now it's there and it's there forever. And I think all of us, and I think that was the whole point of that, was just to show you're demanding, the Daily Record are demanding that people be whiter than white and purer than the driven snow, and yet you can't follow these standards because those standards are impossible. because they don't take into account that we're human beings. What we were trying to do, and so far, Touchwood have been successful in, was to tell the whole media, you can't do that to ordinary people. They don't deserve this, right? I can maybe, at a push, see the justification for doing it with a politician. Like if somebody was in charge of gay rights legislation who had tweeted anti-gay stuff, that's different. I get that. But to just pick on ordinary members of the public, which is what we all are, I thought that was cowardly, especially people at Daily Record that would never criticise the government. They don't have the balls to do that. They won't hold ministers to account, but they'll go after podcasters. And what it did, Martin, was it opened the door, because I don't think I know I hadn't understood the depth of resentment that Rangers supporters feel about the way that we are treated and the way that we are held to a completely different standard, and the way that our behaviour is judged to a completely different standard. And Rangers fans said, no, we're not putting up with this anymore. Now, I don't think many Rangers fans agree with these rules, but all we're saying is, if these are the rules and it was you guys who decided that it was, then we're going to play by them too. And I know there were guys at the Daily Record who were like, I can't believe he did this, the bastard. And and I know people said to them, you set the terms of engagement. This is you. All he's doing is playing you by the game that you dragged him into. So no, I don't. Until we're a wee bit more growing up, in terms of understanding that human beings are human beings and they make mistakes and they should be allowed to apologise for it, then this will happen. The funny thing about it was, because there's always dark humour in everything. 2 weeks before it, Martin, I was at the doctor's for a back issue. My doctor said, come here. I was like, yeah, and he gets, she gets the thing out actually and starts doing all that and starts asking a few questions. And she went, yeah, I need you to go to hospital for a scan. I was like, wow. And it turned out I did 2 mini strokes, they call them, which is why, just in case anybody's wondering why my face is slanty, that's why. You maybe noticed in some of my videos that my face is slanty. That was what she clocked, that
right.
when I was lower than the other. And she said to me, she goes, is your job stressful? And I went, it shouldn't be, but it can be, and then had to explain to her what it was I did, So literally sort of the week before, I'm like, to the boys, I was like, and girls, I was like, look, I've had this, mini strokes, and I need to, cut down my work for a bit, and I need to less stress. And then that fucking happens, less stress. I was like, are you taking a piss? But
have you just on the mini strokes, because you had there was rumours that there was your health wasn't great. I think obviously because you put out something saying that you weren't feeling too great, so everybody puts 2 and 2 together and gets cancer. Of course they do. Everybody gets cancer.
No. Thankfully, no. My health.
But the mini strokes you're talking about, are you fine now? Is everything okay health wise?
There's a lingering thing, because it's essentially what it is it's like a bleed on the brain, and thankfully it's a mini bleed on the brain, not the full, a stroke. So there are side. I get tired very easily now, confused. Some would say that that's no different, but you notice certain things with your motor skills that aren't previously what they could be. So you've got to get on. Like a lot of people, unfortunately, in Scotland, I've had appointments, follow-up appointments cancelled. Because we all know what's going on at the moment. So I maybe haven't quite got back to and maybe I would, maybe I won't get back to the level I was at before. But again, it sounds like I'm giving it the full poor me's. This is why I can't get life insurance, by the way, because I'm an alcoholic with too many strokes and my back, which is made of spit. So I've got this long-running and degenerative back condition, and it means that somebody, like, see if I go to Ibrox, I'm sitting outside, and then the next day I can't move. It's like on the couch in the fetal position, So. But what are you going to do? It happened. There's no point green about it. It happened. It was the same. I was literally in my bed the day the record thing started, and I was like, right, well, need to get up, need to get the boxing gloves on, son. That's probably the kind of story of Heart and Hand, and probably my own life story is that I'm a clumsy bastard and I fall down a lot, but I always get back up. And my mate, Cammy, one of the boys, Cammy said to me, he was like, see if we were in a war zone, he said, you'd walk through it without a bullet hitting you. He says, or if a bullet did hit you, it would bounce off your button and hit me. And I was like, you're probably right there.
See, the problem is, if I fall down because of the size of my belly, it just takes me so much longer to get back up. That's the issue I've got.
Oh, mate, I'm like a turtle now, I'm back waiting.
It's ridiculous, honestly. That's why we had to get a low bed so I could roll out it in the morning.